Don't let this election get to you or get to the better parts of you. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about some ancient Eastern philosophy and practices that not only will help you control your mind during this election cycle, but will also allow you to not let the anxiety of the election get the best of you. This video applies to both liberals, conservatives, moderates, everybody. I think a lot of us know that a lot of division has happened in this country, and regardless of what side you are on, it does cause anxiety. First, I want to quickly tell you a story. When I was younger, I first moved to Los Angeles to pursue electronic music. And in that process, I found a really beautiful community of friends, of other musicians, of coworkers that would support me in this dream. But even though I had all that support, I wasn't happy. I found myself constantly worrying about my success as opposed to actually doing anything about it. I then would actually see little blips of success, little blips of breaks that were happening for my career, and I still did not find happiness within that. Because what I would do instead is I would get irritated with everybody around me because I was not allowing myself to see what I could be grateful for. What would happen more often than not is something would trigger my mind and I would start to think about it. And this cycle would take hours to break. And I'm sure you've experienced it too. Have you ever been in a moment where you keep thinking about something that upsets you? You keep thinking about something that triggers you? And at one moment it's gone, and then you think about it again, and the next thing you know, you're in that cycle. Your cortisol spikes, your breath gets more shallow and fast, your heart rate goes up. I would do this to myself all the time. It was so unhealthy. So moving forward, what I decided when I started to meditate was that I have the decision of how I feel about a certain topic. And even if I think that it's a topic that makes me feel unhappy, that doesn't mean I have to engage with it in a way that triggers these emotions. I can simply not identify with it. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. The ancient practices that we're going to talk about are from the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, which is what I teach on this platform. And I can tell you that the goal of these practices is not for you to remove yourself from the situation. A lot of people think that's what Buddhist practices are. That's a nihilistic approach about not caring about what happens. Instead, you are going to learn how to be extremely present with what is happening so you can address it, so you can fight for what you believe in, so you can push forward the principles and morals that you stand for, but at the same time do it in such a way that you do not let the other aspects, the negative aspects, the other pushes against you, waver how you feel. That's the big word here, is the wavering of the mind. The mind needs to be on a still surface. It needs to be on glass, as opposed to the mind being on a rocky, shaky, ocean that is throwing water over the sides and, sinking ship. So the ancient Buddhist practices that we're going to look into is the first, tanha, which means clinging or attachment, and how that leads to dukkha, unsavoriness, unsatisfactoriness, unpleasantness, or suffering. These two words, tanha and dukkha, if you can remember them, will change your life in any aspect. But today, specifically for the election and the political environment, we're going to use them, and this is how we're going to do it. The first thing you have to know is that all of dukkha that we experience, or suffering, unsatisfactoriness, comes from tanha. So if you can apply that in your daily life and you can recognize, where am I experiencing dukkha? Then from there, you step forward, or rather step backward in the chain and ask, well, what is it that I am clinging to? Where is the tanha that I am holding? When you start to do this, it becomes a really easy practice. And the first thing you're going to need to do to get good at it is start to meditate consistently. I have other meditation videos on this channel, but it's very simple. You close your eyes, you sit down, and you begin to observe your breath. And in doing so, you're observing reality, and you're observing the thoughts that come into your mind. And you observe that clinging and attachment that you experience every moment of every day. The more you do this, the more you can start to let go of that clinging. And that's the basic of the process, the basics of it. When it comes to the election itself, you need to be able to not be so reactive when you have discussions with family members, when you have discussions with yourself, when you look up videos on YouTube that trigger you. It's good to be educated, it's good to be informational, but when you see something that is going to trigger you, you simply let it be there. This is the process of almost disassociating with the feeling. I don't mean disassociation in the mental health circumstance where we actually remove ourselves from the situation, but it is a non-identification. Okay, remember that word. We have this clinging to something. We need to not identify with that thing. That's where the clinging really comes into play. So, for example, somebody says something like, I believe, XYZ about abortion. Because people might say those things, regardless of which side you are on, you might get triggered because you have a very strong stance on it, let's say. So in that moment, what you need to do is you need to recognize your attachment to that topic, your attachment to the fact that the other person does not agree with you in that topic. They don't have to agree with you. They shouldn't have to agree with anything. Everybody is their own person, right? So because of that, once you let go of this idea, the clinging that you have to the idea that a person needs to agree with you, the whole world opens up into a whole new place. And when you have that, you also have a step up, not only on the person that you're debating, but that's not really the point of this video. You have a step up on how you experience reality. Because instead of it being this constant fight, this constant push, you come to a place where there is no more fighting, there is no more pushing. You are letting things simply pass through you. This is the ancient Buddhist practice.